right, the red light's on, and you should be comfortable in this, right? I think you're like my first musician that's probably had the red light on a few times in recording, right? Is that?
I have. I'm your first musician? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, I've had other musicians, but like a band,
Yes,
I've had like people who's made an instrument. All right, so my first question is, what'd you have for breakfast this morning?
A piece of toast with jam that my dad made, and then cheese from Aldi, which is the place to get cheese, in case you didn't know.
I get a lot of stuff from Aldi's. Aldi's is like the best.
It really is.
Yeah,
it's great for us musicians on a budget too.
Yes, or if you own a crowdfunding agency, you're also on a budget. So
exactly, you get it.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you letting us know what you had for breakfast this morning. Why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you introduce yourself to my audience and tell me what you're currently raising money for over on Kickstarter?
Yes, my name is Ariel. I'm from a rock band called Icon for Hire, and we are currently funding our 4th studio album called Amorphous. We're entirely independent. We don't have the support of a record label or a big team, so we rely on our fans to kind of serve that role, and they are definitely hooking it up for us, and the campaign's going great, so we're very happy, yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So where did crowdfunding kind of fit into this? I know that there's kind of an interesting backstory. I know it's tied to COVID a little bit here, but where did this all kind of come from to do a Kickstarter here?
Yeah, it's not new for us. We were with the label for many years. It wasn't for us. So we ended up filing bankruptcy, and then we left the label because that dissolved our contract with them. And so when we wanted to make music after that, we were like, what do we do? So we launched a Kickstarter in 2016. It did really well. We've since done Patreon on a monthly basis since then. So this is kind of built into our ethos now with our audience. They get this world. We weren't sure if we were going to do another Kickstarter, but then we had a lot of fans that actually asked for it. They were excited about the idea. And I thought it would be so lame to just release an album on iTunes when we could make it this really beautiful experience and do these cool rewards. And it's a very engaged time with our fan base because of the campaign. Yep. And then also, like you mentioned with COVID, we did have to cut our tour short due to COVID. Our last shows were scheduled in Italy. We had to, rebook all our flights. We lost out a lot of deposits. It was a huge financial hit. So because of that, it also made sense to turn to our fans to help out financially.
Yeah, that's awesome. So where in this kind of equation, though, of like the band's ethos does having the crowds kind of be a part of it? I mean, I know you mentioned about the past support, but how do you start to adapt that sort of mindset? I mean, it's kind of like the Amanda Palmer, mindset, if I'm not mistaken. Right? I mean, I think she's like the tip of the spear of this world. So where does it start to fit in where you're like, you know what, we should be doing this for our project?
It felt like it was birthed out of necessity when we didn't really have, any other way to keep making music. So we turned to our fans like, hey, now that we're not on this label, if you want continued creations from us, we're going to have to find a new model. Are you willing to experiment around with us? And they totally were. So in that way, it was birthed from that. But also, we have been a band for 13 years. We've always been really DIY, really independent. I have made all my own clothes that I wear on stage and in music videos. To support myself, sold all the clothes that I made to our fans. I would sit at the merch table and sew tutus to order. And that was how, we paid the rent for many years because music wouldn't support us.
Right.
And then, we've always, as most bands learn, it's a lot more rewarding and fulfilling and just smarter to have a good connection with your fans.
Yeah.
And, to not just leave it all to this big machine marketing company, but to create that one-on-one connection. It makes it easier for me as a songwriter to know how I want to connect with, what I want to say to our listeners. And so it just seemed kind of natural. Our fans really already knew us. There wasn't this big, we're unapproachable thing going on. We've always been, the band at the festival putting up all the flyers and hanging out till 2 a.m, talking to some kid who's crying about their parents' divorce, or, we have a lot of fans with a lot of emotional issues, which I also have, so I can relate. So we just bonded over that, and it hasn't ever stopped. We just keep bonding. That was a long answer, but
no, it's great. So, for our listeners who may have no idea what you guys sound like or that sort of stuff, kind of walk us through maybe, there's this band, our band's here, and then there's this band. Where do you guys kind of fit in the spectrum of sound and what you guys sound like?
Yeah, well, our favorite band is Linkin Park, so I want to sound like Linkin Park. However, I'm a vocalist, so being a female-fronted, quote-unquote, band means that we're always exclusively compared to other female-fronted bands, like Paramore, Evanescence, Hailstorm, that world. Sometimes I get some Gwen Stefani. But we're inspired by 21 Pilots as well. We've got some hip-hop elements in our music, so it's kind of in that vein.
That's cool. So you mentioned 13 years as a band, and this crowdfunding campaign is for a new album, correct?
Yep.
And what's the, do you have a title on it? What's kind of the bulk of this type of music? What are you being inspired by? What's happening right now?
Yeah, the title is Amorphous. It is 14 tracks, but Kickstarter backers will get an exclusive 4 more tracks that aren't on the album that's available to the public. This sound, we're a little bit going back to some of our roots. A lot of our fans really, I think their favorite album of ours is still our first album, because that's when they were first exposed to us, which I understand. Sure.
Yeah.
So we did take it back, and also we're a little bit emotional and maybe especially angry about some of the COVID limitations. I think the whole world is. So that anger and aggression came out, and these songs are a little heavier than maybe we even expected they would be. But that feels honest and authentic at this time. But really, it's I always have to be thinking. I've written so many songs at this point, so I have to keep thinking how I can keeping honest, keeping relevant, keep things fresh. And for me, that means always digging a little bit deeper and getting a little more vulnerable, like more than I knew I could. So this album, we try to do that. Yeah.
Well, let's walk through a little bit about maybe for somebody who's not aware of the songwriting world, what's your process like? Is it starting with an acoustic guitar and just a quick melody or a beat? How do you guys start the process?
We do 2 ways primarily. So the way that I do it is I'll sit right here at my piano when I have a feeling. So it always has to be, for me, an inspirational strike. I hate to write with this, like, let's write a song mentality. That, like, is so cringy to me. Sure. So I always am emotional. I'll be like, oh, I really need to express this. And I'll just sit and kind of play it out. And then something will come. And then I will write the song. And then I'll bring it to Sean, my partner, guitar player, and he will kind of demo it out. So that's one way. The other way is he is actually a producer himself. So he will create this awesome musical piece, send it to me, and then I'll write vocals over it.
That's cool. That's cool. Is there a way that you prefer the most or the best? Is there something that you're like, I really like this way the best?
Well, it kind of seems that all the higher energy songs start from Sean producing. So those end up being the singles that resonate with people. But all the more like sad, sappy ballads come from me at the piano. So anything that's really emotionally based and just emo, really, that's going to come from me at the piano. And I like those because they just feel so organic to me. But I think our fans probably resonate with the high energy stuff.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And where'd you grow up?
I was born in Sweden, lived there till I was about 6, then moved to Minneapolis. And then my dad had a job transfer when I was like 15, so I moved to Illinois, and that's where I met Sean, and that's where we started the band.
Gotcha. And is there like a location for the band now? Like where do you guys?
Yes, we're in Nashville.
Oh, very nice. It's a hot town. That's a sweet area.
It's great. We really like it. They've got like awesome food and nice people. It's great. It's not like super. There's a little bit of music there. I've heard. Like I don't know. They've got just a little bit there. So that's what I've heard too. Yeah.
Yeah. So for a young band out there, do you think right now Kickstarter and crowdfunding is actually something that a young band can actually go into and have success with, or is it something that because you guys have a track record and a fan base and that sort of stuff that's why you're having success? Do you think that a young band can actually just jump on and do this?
It depends. I think you can be the big fish in the small pond and be pretty young still if you've got your engaged kind of like town around you, which is how we started in Decatur, Illinois. We just got all our friends and family around us from the beginning, and that's how we were able to grow. I don't want to be ignorant and naive and think that anyone can replicate what we've done, because we have been lucky to have the label backing at one point, which helped with exposure, and I'm aware of that. But every band is responsible for their tribe building and the culture that they build. And so if you are really, with your fans doing a bunch of live streams, you're engaged on socials, engaged after your shows or before your shows, I think it could be possible. I would almost then, encourage someone to start on Patreon then, because it's going to be a little bit of a way to test the waters. It's not quite as public of a thing. There's not a lot of press around it. And then if that's successful, maybe you can parlay that into a Kickstarter campaign.
That's cool. So you may not know this, but my listeners will. I used to own recording studios, and
cool.
I had 4 of them, and I used to crowdfund every single project. And I was like a minor league baseball system for musicians. So a band would come to me, I would kickstart their project. We would do a live in-studio performance, 7 songs, all videotaped, and then put out a vinyl record. So this was like 2009 through 2015. We did almost 300 bands this way. We got 4 or 5 bands signed. It was great, right?
Awesome.
So that's why I was excited to chat about this, because I haven't seen bands have a lot of success truly since I left doing Kickstarters. I got out of it. I was like, I can't. Because we lost, we got into, it used to be everything would be organic. So I could just tweet and Facebook, and we would
Yeah.
get backers, right?
Back in the good old days.
Right,
yes.
right. Now I have to have like Facebook ad budget of like 20 grand. And it's like, well, wait, this doesn't work anymore. Like this doesn't work anymore. So that's why I was asking some of these questions, because I'm wondering just, very rarely have I seen bands been using crowdfunding as successfully as you guys are. A couple Kickstarters, the Patreon. And I just wonder if that still exists for, a good band, just a band that's like, hey, we're a good band from Detroit. Is that possible anymore,
I don't know if people care about a good band from Detroit, quote unquote, but people do care about Jimmy from the good band from Detroit. And if people are having that emotional, personal connection, and the band is doing a great job of fostering that, which you can create at no cost through socials, just by doing a bunch of lives, a bunch of Insta stories, a bunch of personal cool notes, like it is possible to build that. I don't know if you're going to, make $50,000, but I think you could maybe do a $5,000 or $10,000 campaign, friends and family style, with a little bit of extra love from your fans. But it's kind of the same thing. It's always been, well, more now than ever, really. Like if you don't have a fan base, it's going to be hard to activate non-existent fans. I don't think that, if you build it, they will come. I don't think posting it on Kickstarter, it means that you'll get tons of money magically. It's really based on the strength of that relationship.
Yeah. Well, I think you just hit on something kind of interesting. You clearly, I can already get that vibe, are comfortable being that person on Instagram stories per se, right? Yeah. So how do you maybe think about other bands, or why you're comfortable in that? Because a lot of bands are like, I'm a musician, I'm an introvert, I don't want to let my music speak. Like, you know what I mean? And that's a tough thing. It's, in my music world, I'm a guitar player and had bands for many years. Like I was that guy. I'll be out, I'm cool. But like, it is a personality type that I think has to be in these projects to some degree too. Do you find that to be a little bit true as well?
I mean, there's a reason Sean isn't on this interview with me, because he doesn't really talk. I'm the one who does the talking, and I am an introverted person. I do get more energy from being by myself, but I know how to show up and, articulate. I'm the lyricist. I know how to talk, basically. Yeah. But for me, the secret sauce is understanding emotional connection. And I always think back to when I was like 14 or 15 and Linkin Park came on the scene, blew my mind. And I was like, oh, these dudes in their 20s get me. This is crazy. They created that bond. And I spent so much of my babysitting money on that band. Right? Like I was out in the cold for hours promoting them. I give everything to them. So I think about, what did they do to me that hooked me in so much? How can I make it easy for other people to resonate with me as an artist? And I think I kind of try to get out of the way, let my ego get out of the way, and just be like, I want to serve potential fans who would benefit from my music. And if that means they have to watch me do a hair tutorial, I'm happy to do that. But I know it's not a personality for everyone. I teach at music conferences. I do a bunch of speaking on that. And so I talk to dudes in their 50s who are like, how do I get on TikTok? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
But the secret is really sharing insecurities and being like, yo, I'm a 50-year-old dude who doesn't know how to do this, but I'm going to just figure it out and do it in my imperfect way. That's kind of special. Like that can be magical. And that's almost more interesting than another chick in her 20s who's cute, like doing her little dance, because there's millions of those.
Yeah, right. So I'm really glad we just talked about this, because I coach a ton of startup companies, right? That's kind of what I flipped into. My analogy is constantly, who's the front man in your band? Who is going to be this person that's going to take your widget, your jacket that heats up, whatever it is that you're working on, and says, I believe in this. I had a bad day. I had a down day. And you mentioned that word insecurities, because I think that is actually what all these, if you're doing crowdfunding, you're embracing your insecurities to say, we need some money.
Yes.
We want to do this thing. Do you guys want to do it with us? So I think we're what I'm hitting at is I'll probably be using this as some content around, like, you got to be a front man. You have to be comfortable in that space, whether you're putting out an album, making a widget, selling your cookies. I don't know. You got a cupcakes shop, whatever. It doesn't matter. You got to find a way to do this sort of stuff. So where do you guys see this campaign kind of going? What does it mean? What happens when the money drops? What starts happening in your guys' process and stuff?
It's sort of the rallying cry around the album launch. So the album won't launch for a few more months, but currently the Kickstarter is, in a weird way, part of the marketing plan, because there's a lot of buzz around the Kickstarter. It makes it easy for people to know there's an album coming, buy in, get excitement. We have a lot of excitement about the rewards that we're doing, and we keep launching new cool things for everyone. So that's part of it. And it's going to help. The money that we're raising is helping with music videos, is helping with mixing and mastering, post-production, marketing, blah, 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 all the boring stuff. But it just really ensures that we get to put our album out our way, you know, and create this beautiful, fun story around it where our fans are part of it with us. That's kind of the point. So they know, like, from the beginning, they were part of it.
Yeah, it's one of the, when we did all of our Kickstarters for musicians, we loved putting out the rewards because you can make the rewards so, like, we would do mystery boxes and it would just be like lyric sheets and just whatever. I mean, and it's like it's the equivalent of like the deluxe box set of like, oh, I got Led Zeppelin's deluxe box set from, you know, and it's got all these things in it, and you're just, you know, and it's crazy how much music has turned into the album artwork, the flipping, I want to hold and be a part of something as I'm listening. And Kickstarter really does that. But again, I think that's a challenge for a lot of bands to think that way about their music, to think that it's more than just, I'm just listening to it in the car. It's, how do you guys think about all that stuff, you know?
I get so inspired when I look at other artists who are successfully have a Kickstarter campaign, reading through the rewards, because sometimes there's so much personality. The way that it could come across as a really like begging kind of thing, but the way that they phrase it, the way that they kind of spin it, it makes you just fall in love with them. And you're like, oh, this is so cool. I don't care that you're asking for 20 grand for something that's not worth 20 grand at all. I love it. Or whatever it is. If there's like a crazy reward, because people are just having fun with it, not taking it too seriously. Exactly. And that's what Kickstarter is. It's a chance to show your personality. And so like, that's what I was saying earlier. I feel like you have to almost get over yourself and not downplay your personality, but think of it as a way, I'm going to serve my fans by making it easy for them to see themselves as part of this campaign by showing their personality, you know? So I edited and directed the video for this. I did all the whole story. I did all the rewards. I just knew if I could just think about it. So at like 2 a.m, I'd just be up typing, thinking of everything. And if I could just wrap my head around it and think of it like I'm writing a song, like how do I want the end user to feel when they see this? That kind of helped anchor me.
100%. So specifically though, this campaign, when did you guys know that you were ready to launch? Did you guys do some pre-launch? Did you tease it somewhere? How did you know that, hey, we should hit that launch button?
Well, we planned it for the same day that our first single came out. So that was the strategy on that. We did 2 days before that, we did make it public. And so our patrons were able to come over and have first access to all the rewards. And we made it very clear to our Patreon family, we love you guys. There's no pressure to participate in the Kickstarter. And we still are giving a lot of our patrons really good perks that you can't still get from the Kickstarter. And if you double up, you get like amazing perks, basically. But yeah, there was a few days, and that was really cool to see how good the response was. We had about 500 patrons, and we did, I want to say, about $30,000 before it went really live to the public, which was, we were super stoked on that. So it was great.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you have any conversations or thoughts around our audience is on Kickstarter, or like, you know, like our audience is the right demographic for Kickstarter, or is there our Kickstarter's lame, our Kickstarters aren't cool anymore? Like, is there any internal conversation like that, you know?
Yeah, I guess I know that our audience isn't like hanging out on Kickstarter.com all day, but I know that we tell them to go there. You know, and they obviously are familiar with the campaign because we did one a few years ago, so we've already educated our audience about how this works and everything. There was a little thought of, will it not show growth to be back on Kickstarter? Will that show that we haven't really come far? And I just had, that was kind of people from our team, like more traditional industry people that were saying that. And I was like, I don't really care because I know this is going to be awesome. And I know our fans would be disappointed if we just were like, here's a video, here's an album, ta-da, go find it on Spotify. That's too boring. We have to make it really dynamic and interesting.
Yeah. And what did you feel like, now, again, this is number 2, but maybe what you learned from 1 to 2 on the Kickstarter campaign. But what did you feel like you needed to show in the story section of Kickstarter to, you know, put the weight into it? Like, what did you feel like you needed to show? Was it emotion, feeling, just good rewards? Like, what did you feel like you needed to put in there?
I felt like I needed to tell the story. I needed to turn the different elements of why we're doing this into a kind of cohesive storyline where by the time the reader has gone through it, which by the way, I don't think people read those. I think they just kind of skim them and are like, here's a couple points, look at the photos. But I put I put more thought into the video than I did into the story part, but the heart of it, I was trying to translate our heart and like how we got to this place of thinking that this was a good idea, which for us, that part of that storyline was COVID. Part of it was we have to release music now. The world needs music now. We shouldn't hold back our songs until it's a more ideal time. And then at the end, I did talk about some rewards and FAQ. But again, with that emotional songwriter mindset, I'm just like, I want to hook them in their heart.
Right. Yeah. Was there concern about just the just the world, nobody has money, right?
Yeah.
The whole world is in this state of like, what's happening next? Were you guys concerned about that at all?
Yes. Every time that like a new news article would come out about people, I would just be like, I was most concerned about being culturally insensitive about this time. And so that's why we tried to really have a delicate, light touch to how we approached it. And we really tried to give even our fans an out and say, if this isn't for you, you're still part of the family. We still love you. We get that this isn't an ideal time.
Right.
And I guess I still even have those concerns, but then I look at our Kickstarter page, which is doing great. So I'm like, I guess it wasn't a problem. But yeah, that was scary to think about for sure. Like, what if it just totally, if it didn't do well though, that would be a good excuse. I could be like, oh, it's because of COVID. It's not because of us.
Right. Yeah, it's all about pivoting. We can pivot, go over here.
Yep, exactly.
That's cool. Well, I mean, we've literally mentioned probably Kickstarter a gazillion times, but haven't actually talked about some specifics. So while we're talking right now, there's about 14 days to go in it. Over 1,800 backers, which is, I mean, that's awesome in my world. I love the amount of backers more than the money sometimes, because it's just like, that's people. There's a person behind that, right? Like, but the money right now, over $140,000. So, I mean, you're crushing it right now. Has there been something behind the scenes in the dashboard that has just been like, I did not expect this? We are gigantic in Taiwan, or I don't know. Is there something that's just like, wow, something weird?
I haven't looked into the actual location analytics as much. What I do look at is where traffic is coming from, where what rewards are going, and then the average pledge, which right now our average pledge is about $77, which is interesting because of our last Kickstarter. We can compare dashboards between our last Kickstarter, which is nice, and that one was about $43. So I don't know if it's going to maybe keep going down because all the super fans got the really cool rewards at the beginning that are now gone. So I don't know, but I am pretty impressed that the average pledge is so high. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And how did you guys think about, because I think, again, when we used to do these for musicians, we love stretch goals and add-ons and all kinds of that little stuff too. How did you guys apply a stretch goal strategy and thinking about that in this as well?
I mean, we just thought of some rewards that we weren't going to release in the beginning that we'll release as we go. We've usually released them on Fridays. Fridays are a great day in the music industry to share new things, launch new things, probably the world too. And so it's kind of been on the fly. Like, every night I'm texting with my, operations admin girl who's got a lot of great ideas with me. And I'm like, ooh, we should do this. Let's release this. And it has made a big difference. We didn't add a continued new rewards. We didn't do stretch goals. We didn't do add-ons for our first campaign. And so, and I know that add-ons bring about 20%, 30% growth, apparently, supposedly. So that's been good. But we just launched the stretch goals about 5 days ago. We've beat one of them. One of them is intentionally so high that we probably won't reach it, which is fine because I don't even want, because it's if we get $250,000, Sean will get a dog. He really wants a dog. I do not want a dog. So it's a win-win for me.
Right.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, what kind of dog is it though? What is there a dog?
He wants like a German Shepherd.
Okay,
like a huge first
dog. Big dog. It's a big.
He wants it to do security on tour. I'm just like, what? He's also a big fishing guy. He wants to have a fishing buddy dog. I don't know.
Okay. I think at that point, isn't that like a basset hound or something like that with like the big ears? Is that a fishing dog? I don't know.
I don't know. You tell me.
I toured with my little Yorkie, Miss Madeline Francis. That was my touring dog. Yeah, little Yorkie in the bag, and we went all over the place, and that's what we would do. So yeah, she toured the road. She mixed everything with me. So yeah, that's awesome. So what? Outside of being on this podcast, which is like probably your number one strategy to continue the campaign growing, what else might you be doing to just make sure that you're keeping energy up, keeping people excited, and making sure that trough of despair isn't as deep, right?
Right. It's mostly continued engagement with our fans. We never really put a lot of stock into like press will come on board or this really awesome opportunity will come. We always like to rely on what we know we have full control over. So for us, that's social posting. We're doing a bunch of live streams and that's really fun. We obviously have our email campaigns. We have text messages that we send out. That's about the extent of it. We're pretty active on socials right now. It's like a full-time job, campaigning right now. So that's about it. Yeah.
And then how about just in general? I mean, I am nervous about this for all musicians. What is like just life like right now? I mean, the uncertainty, are you touring? Like, what does it feel like to be in your guys' shoes right now?
That's a little sad. It's a little like depressive, especially for a lot of us musicians who already have perhaps emotional and mental issues that we work through on a regular basis.
Sure.
The thought of not having that outlet, the thought of the uncertainty, it's currently looking like fall 2021 would be the earliest, but it's been pushed back this whole time. I anticipate it will keep being pushed back. So 2022 probably. So then you're like, well, what do I do? Like, what do I do financially to survive? What do I do for my well-being, to not go crazy? We're not used to being at home for months at a time. That feels really weird. But what I do see is some of my friends, like you mentioned, pivoting. Like that's kind of what's happening. People are finding a really great audience on Twitch, or obviously the virtual concerts, under oath, $600,000 on their live stream. Like what?
Yep.
I'm hopeful that what can happen is bands will find a new way to make an income and connect with their fans during this time. And then when touring is back on, it will just be an additional opportunity for them where they can have even more revenue and more connection with their fans. That would be the ideal outcome.
Yeah. So, and I agree with you. So like, I do live sound for big mega churches now. So like, that's how I got spit from the studio into like mixing for like 3,000 people on a Friday and Saturday and Thursday and Sundays all day. Right.
Wow.
But it has been intriguing because I'm at a very high end of the production level, right? Like we're live streaming to huge audiences, line arrays, all that sort of stuff. But it has been intriguing just to watch. We've got a whole new channel now. Like, we're broadcasting all the time. It sounds good, looks good. It's a great experience there, as well as the in person. So I hope bands see that and go, yeah, I'm in Detroit. You're in Nashville. I'll watch. I'll put some kitty from, I'll PayPal you or Venmo you and enjoy some songs. So
I hope it ends up being, because touring is really expensive, but virtual streaming I think maybe isn't quite as expensive, or the costs are a little bit easier to calculate in advance. So in theory, maybe there could be like a higher return on investment for bands. What I get concerned about is bands who are so mad that they can't tour that they refuse to look at other potential opportunities, where they're just like keeping their heads down, like, F this sucks, I'm just going to wait. And I'm like, oh no, like don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I will say, though, there is something about the live show experience that just does not quite come across through a Zoom.
I know, but then what if touring is even better than ever? And what if people, pack out these clubs, or what if people are willing to pay more for that live experience?
Yeah,
a lot of times, bands at our level just barely make a profit on touring. Like it's just kind of iffy if that's going to happen. So if it could be a little bit more consistent and reliable, that would be just amazing, Yeah.
Well, and I wonder, what does the interaction look like if you do know that you're playing, but your audience is the world, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're like, how could you bring in engagement and it's video streams, right? We're all doing it, right? So how do you incorporate that stuff into your world that really brings people in to, in a more live, engaging way, if that makes sense, right? Than just watching it passively on Facebook on a Tuesday night.
Right. That's the question. Can you, stream your fans in? Can you be giving shout outs? Can you still be doing giveaways? Like what kind of creative stuff can you be adding to the live stream to make it fun, basically?
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess what starts happening, the Kickstarter ends, all right, money's in the bank account, everything's in, this kind of ends. You have I'm assuming a launch release, right? Do you have a day that you launch it? It goes up, does it all hit?
Theory.
Yeah, it all goes to Spotify's, but what starts happening for you guys?
We don't have the album release date quite locked in yet, because there is, I know this is so cliche at this point, but there are some COVID-related delays for us that we're experiencing with the manufacturing side. So we're hesitant to give an exact date until we really have that locked in. We don't want to move it. Anyway, when that comes out, we will send out all these rewards we promised everyone. That'll be a lot of lyric sheet writing, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of fun stuff. So that'll take a month, probably, just shipping out all the rewards. We've got music videos planned, and we actually were able to increase our number of music videos we're doing because of the Kickstarter, which is super exciting. And then after the album comes out, we will continue to focus on each new song. So each song on the album gets a little bit of highlight, even if it wasn't a single. And then we will kick off the album launch with a huge virtual live stream, like an album release party. And then the plan is to consistently be doing those throughout the spring, basically.
That's cool. That's very cool.
That's as far as we've gotten.
Yeah. Hey, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's as far as you should go, because you just never know what's going to happen in like a week. So,
No kidding. Yeah.
So one of the things that and I've said this a gazillion times on other episodes, but like I've killed a couple companies just over shipping, right? We just didn't calculate shipping correctly.
Yeah.
So how did you guys approach shipping and handling for many different products and just stand back and go, all right, we're okay. We've got this stuff covered. I can ship the vinyl. I can ship the CD. I can ship the things, right? How did you guys navigate that?
Well, we kind of learned from the first Kickstarter when we shipped hoodies all over the world for $25 shipping, and I was like, oh Lord. So we definitely knew that going into it. We are a band who ships merch regularly internationally, so we are pretty aware of the different costs. But what we did this time is, unfortunately, we limited a lot of the heavier stuff to just US, which is a bummer, but that's kind of the safe way to do it. We had that woman I mentioned earlier, my operations administrator, do all the like calculating, because she does a lot of our merch fulfillment. And then additionally, we have some partners in the UK who will be manufacturing vinyl and CDs, at least on their end. So they will ship from UK in a way that makes sense there. We'll ship from US where it makes sense. So I hope that that'll help relieve the burden, but I'm expecting a huge margin of error, like that we just screwed it up and that we're going to be like, crap.
Right. Yeah. It happens. It's definitely a part of it. Even every campaign that we work on, even when we're like, no, we got it. It's all good.
No, especially with the USPS is such a mess right now. I feel like, I mean, is it even still going to be around when this stuff ships? I don't know.
We'll see. I guess we're all in this together to some degree, right? So,
no kidding. Yes.
Well, cool. So what does, I guess, as much as you can, 2021, you can potentially start touring again. Does it just seem like that's really like the next big thing, is that you would go out and tour this record and just kind of get back into that flow? And then after that, what does like 5 years look like for you guys? Is it just, hey, we're going to do a bunch more albums, we've got big ideas and plans? What's your world roadmap look like for the band?
Not much. I mean, we don't. I used to do like these big 5-year plans and quarterly objectives, and it just burned me out. So now I'm just like, I just want to like keep making music. I can see touring being pushed back far enough that we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs, and then we will go back in the studio and make another album, and then we won't probably tour until we're touring on that album. So the risk here is that we could potentially be making this album that we're really proud of and never officially tour on it, and it'll kind of get buried, which is really scary and sucks. But the alternative is just waiting around and doing nothing, so we can't do that.
Sure.
But
that's awesome.
As far as 5 years, I just want to keep making music, keep touring. That's the plan.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, if you've got a minute, I'd like to flip over to nothing to do with about music. Well, maybe a little bit about music, and no Kickstarter talk. Just like a little lightning round. So, what are you watching currently in the streaming world? Netflix, Hulu. You watching anything right now?
I'm watching the new Schitt's Creek season, and then I'm rewatching House of Cards. I like to watch House of Cards in the fall because I feel like it's such a cozy fall show to me. Yeah. House of Cards was so good, and then it just, after the. I know. Well, that's the part I'm at right now, and I'm like, should I keep watching or what? I don't know, but I never finished it the first time, so I want to get. I want to get to the last season because I love Robin Wright. I want to see her kill that role. I don't know. We'll see if I can get through it or not.
Okay. Is there a movie though that you've watched recently?
I watched a movie called The One That I Love with Elizabeth, whatever her name is, from Handmaid's Tale.
Oh yeah, she was in Mad Men and stuff, right? Isn't that her name?
Yeah.
I can picture her right now. Yeah.
Exactly. So she's in this crazy, trippy, like psychological movie called The One That I Love, and it was really weird.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Is there now? Obviously, I know you listen to all my podcasts. That's obviously. Is there any other podcasts that you listen to?
I like one called Meditation Minis.
Okay.
It's just a meditation podcast. It's not quite like easy listening. It's more to fall asleep to. Sometimes I listen to like Brene Brown's podcast. I'm listening to, have you heard of The Go-Giver, that book series? You totally need to look into it. It's like right up your alley. It's all about how to, instead of being a go-getter, being a go-giver, and how to connect with your audience through giving. And awesome. So the author, Bob something, has a podcast that, and kind of in preparation for the Kickstarter to be in that mindset, I was really digging into, just in case there's any great ideas, or kind of like the attitude and the posture that I want to have throughout this campaign. He's really inspiring for that. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's a really good stuff. I'll have to check that out. That sounds really good. How about a book? Are you reading anything right now?
Yeah, I'm reading Simon Sinek's Start With Why, again for the same reason. You know, the Start With Why TED Talk. Yeah, it's great. Atomic Habits, that's like a pretty classic one right now. And then I'm rereading my favorite book, which is Desire Map by Danielle Laporte. So it's all about how to set goals based on how you want to feel instead of what you want to accomplish. It's like a more almost feminine way to approach life instead of this very like dominate, overachieve way.
Some of that toxic masculinity that I believe
Yeah.
is ruining our country. But whatever.
Right.
What do I know? What do I know? Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, where can people, if this is their first time kind of checking it, where can they dive into your world and start absorbing? Where can they go?
I recommend YouTube because we have a lot of cool videos. So just search Icon for Hire on YouTube. Our latest music video just came out last week. And then we're pretty active on Instagram. So that's just at Icon for Hire. And then we've got a website, but I don't know. Do people go to websites for bands?
No, there's nothing better than when somebody's like, we want to hire you to build out a full 10-page website. And I'm like, but who's going to this thing?
I know. It's such a waste of effort.
They'll click through all these pages and no, they're not.
No, people don't do that.
My always response is like, do you do that? No, I don't.
No, maybe you go to like a Wikipedia, maybe some social profiles. That's about it.
And then read and then off to the next thing.
Yep,
read
exactly.
Yeah, so awesome. Well, again, congrats on the Kickstarter. I'm excited to watch. I'll be leaving here and becoming a backer in just a minute here because I'm a serial Kickstarter backer.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, great job. And I was super excited to have this conversation. I appreciate taking time out of your day. And I encourage everybody, please go check out the Kickstarter right now. It's awesome. It's a very good job. Cool.
Thanks so much for having me and spreading the word and for the great conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much.
All right, bye.